COVID-19 originate? The CDC makes an about-face on mask wearing, and the US military is caving to woke propaganda. Hey guys, my name is Jason Wesley, and this is another episode of Not a Podcast. So, the CDC reverses its policy on mask wearing out of nowhere. Now, here's the CDC director, Rochelle Walensky.
Today, CDC is updating our guidance for fully vaccinated people. Anyone who is fully vaccinated can participate in indoor and outdoor activities, large or small, without wearing a mask or physical distancing.
This is the same woman that wasn't following the science a couple of months ago and said that she had a feeling of impending doom. Do you remember when Dr. Fauci said that you shouldn't wear a mask back in March of 2020?
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is.
Then in February of 2021, Dr. Fauci said that we could be wearing masks into 2022.
Do you think Americans will still be wearing masks, for example, in 2022?
You know, I think it is possible that that's the case.
Why do you think Americans might have to wear masks into 2022?
You know, because it depends on the level of dynamics of virus that's in the community, and that's really important.
I remember when Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves, both Republicans, announced that they would allow businesses to reopen at 100% capacity and lift mask mandates in March 2021, and President Biden said it was Neanderthal thinking.
Texas and Mississippi.
Texas, I think it's a big mistake. And the last thing we need is the Neanderthal thinking that in the meantime, everything's fine, take off your mask.
Texas, which is already dealing with one disaster, just announced they're reopening all businesses a week from today and lifting their mask mandate. Are they about to have another crisis on their hands, in your opinion, Sarah?
Possibly. There's a good chance of that right now. What perplexes me is why open all the businesses and take off the masks.
And Michael Moore tweeted March 4th of 2021, Texas, we hear you. You didn't want to be a part of our electrical grid, and now you've removed your mask mandate and are allowing large crowds to gather. We hear you. COVID is a hoax, so you don't need our precious vaccine. To which I responded, are you asserting that everyone that has died from COVID was not wearing a mask? Do you have the stats to back that up, or are you just politically grandstanding for attention? Beto O'Rourke said it was a death warrant for Texas. But then last week, Texas reports 0 deaths from COVID. Governor Greg Abbott tweeted May 16th, today Texas reports 0 COVID-related deaths. The only time that's happened since data was tracked in March of 2020. The fewest COVID cases in over 13 months, the lowest 7-day COVID positivity rate ever, the lowest COVID hospitalizations in 11 months. Thanks, Texans. Vaccine passports, they used to be a conspiracy, but now vaccine passports can liberate America. The CDC's new mask guidance promises freedom. Vaccine passports can make it a reality. If you want to travel next year, you may need a vaccine passport. I'm old enough to remember when Kamala Harris said that she would not take the vaccine if President Trump said to do so.
If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
But now she says, get vaccinated or wear a mask until you do. Kind of sounds a little dictatorial, but Joe Biden tweeted, after a year of hard work and so much sacrifice, the rule is simple. Get vaccinated or wear a mask until you do. Even Hillary Clinton got into the mix and tweeted, it's pretty simple. Get vaccinated. Get your life back. But even with the new CDC guidance, Governor Gavin Newsom in California says, nah, we're good. According to the California Department of Public Health, as of May 3rd, 2021, they said, in indoor settings outside of one's home, including public transportation, face coverings continue to be required, regardless of vaccination status, except as outlined below. But what some people are more concerned about now is whether the person next to them has been vaccinated or not, and they're concerned that we are going on the honor system. We need some sort of way to track these people so that we can know that they're actually vaccinated.
This is the honor system. That's right. Nobody's asking for your vaccine card. And so the hope is everybody's going to be a good citizen, look out for each other.
The only problem is if there is no verification of vaccination status, we are now exposing the 2/3 of the country, and we're seeing that the honor code is already not working.
But even with the option to take off their masks, both indoors and outdoors, many who've been vaccinated say they're remaining cautious and keeping them on.
I think I will probably still wear a mask until I feel it's safe enough to not. Yeah, and it's not just to protect me, but to protect, like the CDC has said, protect the ones around them.
What the hell is that? I don't know what that is. Oh yeah, you remember when there was a conspiracy theory that COVID came from a lab in Wuhan? Here's former President Trump in April of 2020 responding to a question of the origin of COVID-19.
And my question is, have you seen anything at this point that gives you a high degree of confidence that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was the origin of this virus?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And I think that the World Health Organization should be ashamed of themselves because they're like the public relations agency for China.
Facebook, Instagram, and other tech companies removed a video from Tucker Carlson and a Chinese virologist saying it contained false information about COVID-19.
This virus, COVID-19 SARS-CoV-2 virus, actually is not from nature. I work with the top coronavirologists in the world. So together with my experience, I can tell you, this is created in the lab.
But now the former CDC director comes out and believes that it came from a lab in Wuhan.
I am of the point of view that I still think the most likely etiology of this pathogen in Wuhan was from a laboratory, escaped. Other people don't believe that. That's fine. Science will eventually figure it out. It's not unusual for respiratory pathogens that are being worked on in a laboratory to infect a laboratory worker.
Here's Dr. Fauci a year ago in 2020.
Fauci added he does not believe another theory that the virus occurred naturally but was accidentally released into the public from a lab in China.
And here's Dr. Fauci recently.
That it is more likely that this is a natural occurrence, as has happened with SARS-CoV-1, where it goes from an animal reservoir to a human. But we don't know 100% the answer to that. And since this is a question that keeps being asked, we feel strongly, all of us, that we should continue with the investigation and go to the next phase of the investigation that the WHO has done.
Even PolitiFact, the left-leaning propaganda checkers, rated the claim pants on fire at the time. They recently made an update May 17th to say that we consider the claim to be unsupported by evidence and in dispute. So when a Chinese virologist that flees China because her life may be in danger comes out and says what she knows and has also been supported by other claims, rather than say that it's in dispute, you say the claim is inaccurate and ridiculous. We rate it pants on fire. Great job, propaganda checking. Fact checking. Here's Representative Jim Jordan talking about his concerns on why Dr. Fauci and the Democrats never wanted to find out the origins of the coronavirus.
Secretary of Health and Human Services want to know, journalists want to know, Republicans want to know, Americans want to know. Why don't Democrats in Congress want to know where this thing started? Is it because Speaker Pelosi called it a diversion last year when we were raising these questions and asking to have these witnesses brought in front of us? Maybe it's because Dr. Fauci, the all-knowing Dr. Fauci, who Mr. Rogan in his piece said has, quote, repeatedly thrown cold water on the lab leak theory, maybe Dr. Fauci would have to answer some tough questions if we actually dug into how this thing started. How about the fundamental question? The fundamental question, why are we funding research in a lab in Wuhan, China in the first place? Why are we doing that? I think the American people like to know, especially what they've went through over the last year. And just as important, Mr. Chairman, why won't this committee, the only committee in the United States Congress focused solely on the coronavirus, why won't we look into how this thing started? I think the American people like an answer to that question. I yield back.
Now, the smartest among us, the academics on The View, still blame the Trump administration for them not believing the truth.
I think during that time when that theory started to be told, it was buried in an administration and a former president who often kind of troped in kind of racist terms and dog whistles. And so it buried the message that could have been actually reasonable, but no one was going to hear it because it came from under Trump's administration, and the media at that time was used to what he doled out, and they were going to push back on that. Right. I think more investigation is needed, but I think there's, whether the World Health Organization is the one to do it is debatable, because again, they seem to have some partnerships or China has undue influence on them, and I don't quite understand that.
Joy Behar says that Trump was lucky and took a guess.
And, Trump was blaming the Chinese from the beginning because he was using them as scapegoats. If it happens to be true that it comes from Wuhan, well, that was just a lucky break on his part because he took a guess, in my opinion.
It just pains them to say Trump was right.
I'm sorry, I was trying to impress you.
Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida signs a new law in Florida against big tech censorship. The new law allows Floridians who are deplatformed by tech companies to sue them, and courts may award up to $100,000 in damages.
When they try to silence criticism of lockdown, silence people raising questions about the origin of the virus, silencing stories that are inconvenient for their preferred candidates. When they do that, that shows you that they don't have confidence that their side would ultimately prevail.
Anyways, Uncle Joe's out there at the Coast Guard Academy's 140th commencement and tries to redo a joke that Ronald Reagan did as president and gets a slightly different response.
I can only assume that you will enjoy educating your family about how the Coast Guard is, quote, the hard nucleus around the Navy forms in times of war. You're a really dull class.
My Coast Guard aides have been excellent. One of them taught me that, and I quote, the Coast Guard is that hard nucleus about which the Navy forms in time of war.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man.
And speaking of our brave men and women in uniform, here's the new CIA recruitment video.
I'm a woman of color. I am a mom. I am a cisgender millennial who's been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. I am intersectional, but my existence is not a box-checking exercise. I used to struggle with imposter syndrome, but at 36, I refuse to internalize misguided patriarchal ideas of what a woman can or should be.
The Army is now following the woke footsteps of the CIA with their new recruitment video, but I'm going to show you a Russian military recruitment video followed by a Chinese recruitment video juxtaposed with the new US Army recruitment video. Watch this.
Потому что без врага нет боя, а без боя нет победы. Но на самом деле главный враг — это ты. Вчерашний ты. Твоя задача — выследить врага, догнать его, превзойти, стать лучше, чем он, и вернуться назад победителем. Потому что завтра... 各作战群体已修订完善作战计划。
一声道，是一场冲锋。 我们用生命扛起使命。
This is the story of a soldier who operates your nation's Patriot missile defense systems. It begins in California, with a little girl raised by two moms. I also marched for equality. I like to think I've been defending freedom from an early age. When I was 6 years old, one of my moms had an accident that left her paralyzed. Doctors said she might never walk again. But she tapped into my family's pride to get back on her feet, eventually standing at the altar to marry my other mom. With such powerful role models, I finished high school at the top of my class. I needed my own adventures, my own challenge. And after meeting with an Army recruiter, I found it. A way to prove my inner strength and maybe shatter some stereotypes along the way. I'm U.S. Army Corporal Emma Malone Lord, and I answered my calling.
Now you know it's bad when the Young Turks even says it's an issue, for different reasons though.
All right, Cenk, so real quick, I want to get your thoughts on that. Or am I being a little too harsh in watching a video like that and rolling my eyes?
I can just imagine the world leaders looking at our CIA and Army recruitment videos, laughing at the idea that our warriors are fighting the patriarchy and for social justice, as opposed to defending freedom and liberties enshrined in the US Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. But don't worry, our military is just fine. A Space Force CO who got a holiday call from Trump fired over comments decrying Marxism in the military. And if you don't know what Marxism is? Go back and watch my Not a Podcast episode 13 called BLM, Marxism, and Peace. Remember that politicians are like baby diapers. They need to be changed often and usually for the same reasons.
Will you be mine?